That'll be on The Athletic about a month from now, probably. I'm sure you have the dates here.
Well, you just give me anxiety saying a month, but it's early April.
Early April?
Yeah,
okay, so you got
so much
more than
to
a month.
do.
You have more than a month. Deep breaths.
Yeah.
Woosah,
Yeah.
woosah. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube too at the Team 980, where you see one of the guys this week, Dane Brugler, of course, the Athletics' lead NFL draft analyst, and most importantly for me during draft season, the editor of The Beast, which I just wait to come out, not only for the information, but so I know how to say everybody's names right.
I've heard that more than a few times. That all the information in there, but
amazing.
That's one of the most important things for just to understand the pronunciation. And look, the goal of The Beast is to be the one-stop shop, right? So
yeah.
I'm happy that even if it's as simple as the pronunciation, people are getting something out of it. So that's
for
great.
sure. I will say one of the things that I really enjoy diving into. I mean, last year's the most intense draft work I've ever done for Washington because they had the second pick and reboot and the whole deal. But like, I remember reading about Brandon Coleman. I mean, like, this guy's story's amazing. Yeah. What's your favorite part of doing The Beast, and how do you go about, like, the actual, because there's so much actual reporting in there, like journalism reporting of these guys' stories. How do you go about collecting all that?
Yeah, that's my favorite part of this process is learning the journey of all these guys, because they're all different. They all have different backgrounds. They have different, whether adversities that they had to overcome, all the different nuggets. Like, for example, Trey Harris, wide receiver from Ole Miss. He was Malik Neighbors' quarterback in high school.
That's incredible.
Trey Harris he wanted to go straight basketball going into high school. He's like, I'm going to just focus on basketball. Malik Neighbors was like, hey, I know I'm a good receiver, but I need someone to throw to me. He convinced Trey to get back on the team, and I think it turned out okay for both those guys. Trey Harris then moved, once he got to Louisiana Tech, moved to receiver. But, just understanding all these different background stories are so much fun. Siobhan Ravel, corner from ECU. He's a top 50 player in this draft. If not for the ACL, he'd be a first rounder. I've got a feature coming out on The Athletic this week about his background. And the amount of adversities he's had to overcome is crazy. Sophomore in high school, he got in this bad car accident, should not have walked away. Skull fracture, broken nose, 28 stitches, and then has to go JUCO because he didn't have the grades. And then COVID happens in 2020, and he has no prospects. He's working at an Amazon warehouse, and he goes to an ECU prospect camp, runs a 4.40 in the 40, 39-inch vert, 11 broad, and they told him, all right, get your grades up. Your next year at JUCO, there's a scholarship waiting for you. He did his part, goes to ECU, has his breakout 2023 season, and Alabama wanted him, LSU wanted him, turned them all down, turned down a lot of money, stayed at ECU, ACL, September. And it's like, man, this guy, but if anybody can overcome it, it's him, based off of what he's had to overcome. So Siobhan Ravel is one of those guys that the way he's wired, the way he's built, and learning about his backstory helps paint a picture of the type of player he'll be at the next level. So that actually leads perfectly into a question that I'm asking everybody. I'm really excited to ask you on the heels of that, which is, with what Washington did last year, and the success they found. Right. Is there anything that changed or really clarified for you about NFL team building because of how dramatic the turnaround was? And I will, because of what we just talked about, I'll tell you my answer is like the character, the story, like that stuff matters more than I think I gave it credit for. I was always someone who looked at a lot of like you have to have the right scheme, you have to have you have to have the measurables. Like that stuff's just non-negotiable. And I look at the way Washington did it, and I'm like, you know what? If you understand the person, like there's a way to maximize their performance, and of course you can't run my 40 time, right? But like within reason, that's huge. And so I'm curious, one, your answer to that, then I have a follow up off it. Well, and it's even as simple as like Jaden Daniels is immensely talented, but the way he's wired and his mentality, like that's something that you cannot, Did you had Caleb 1, then Jaden? I had Caleb and then Drake and then Jaden. I mean, would you change that now when you see like the wiring and like does that impact how you do it? I mean, based on how the rookie years played out, I think you'd have to. I think you'd be very disingenuous. You'd be stubborn if you didn't. I mean, Jaden was just that special, right? But that's something that you don't necessarily know. Even the best quarterback evaluator out there, I don't think you really know that until you actually see him in the NFL and see how he operates in an NFL locker room. How do you operate in that type of setting? And once you get hit in the mouth, once you throw your first interception, how do you bounce back? And there's something to be said about, who were the best rookie quarterbacks last year? It was Jaden and Nix, 2 guys that were 5-year starters in college football. So having that experience, I think everyone talks about, give me the 21-year-old, give me the young guy. How about the guy with the experience who's been through the ups and downs? And so when you go to the NFL and things don't go perfectly right away, you have to overcome some things, you're able to do that. And so I think that kind of should change how you kind of look at the quarterback position a little bit, factoring in that experience and how important it is. So when you get to the NFL, you get hit in the mouth, you're not going to fold, you're just going to get right back up, and you're going to be stronger because of it.
Dane Brugler, The Athletic, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So the follow-up I have off of that is a lot of guys that are like, I would say, your colleagues, your compatriots across the different platforms. Like, they grind a lot of tape. They're very good at that. You also grind a lot of tape, so it's not that you don't do that. But how does the reporting and research element on the human beings, how does that separate you or make you different in the way that you think you evaluate prospects?
I think I'm probably just a little more curious than maybe some others about just all the background stuff and where they came from and all. The analysis is a huge part of what I do, no doubt. Finding out, okay, these are the strengths, these are the weaknesses, this is where he's at his best, this is where he needs to get better. Watching all of that tape is such a huge part of it, but then also understanding the context, understanding, his 5-sport athlete in high school, or, his family situation. And, it's not all of it's easy to dig up, but I still feel like it's doing these guys justice, giving them a chance to tell their story, and, understand where they're coming from. So I just find it extremely interesting. And I think in order to know where a guy's headed, you need to know where he's from. And I think it's really beneficial. And thankfully, a lot of people enjoy the beast, and a lot of it because of, not just because of the analysis, but also because of all the background information and learning more about all these players.
That'll be on The Athletic about a month from now, probably. I'm sure you have the dates here.
Well, you just give me anxiety saying a month, but it's early April.
Early April?
Yeah,
okay, so you got
so much
more than
to
a month. You have more than a month. Deep breaths.
Yeah.
Woosah,
yeah.
woosah. All right, as for the guys that you're writing about, you look at the end of that first round, Washington's in the edge market, they're in the corner market, the wide receiver market, the offensive line market. How does the way the board likely falls the way you see it match up with those needs for Washington?
It'll be interesting how many edge rushers go in the top 25. This is not there's no Myles Garrett this year.
Right.
There's a really good one at the top of that, Bill Carter. And then, there's a lot of, he's good, but, like Mikael Williams from Georgia, he's good, but he's still pretty raw in a lot of different areas. Mike Green led the nation in sacks this year, but, a lot of that came against Sun Belt competition. But he's fantastic. I love the violence that he plays with nonstop. James Pierce, if you take his best plays at Tennessee, you see a guy that should be a first-round pick, but it's not quite that simple with him. So there's a lot of pass rushers where it's like, yeah, he's good, but. And so how early do these guys go? And then what's left for Washington outside the top 25? One of the more interesting edge rushers, Donovan Izaraku from Boston College. Mm-hmm. He's long. He can be a two-way go guy. He can, and the last 2 years he has been productive, and the traits are there, but also the production's there, which you love to see with pass rushers. So I think he's maybe one of the more interesting, if we're talking realistically who could be there. Izaraku from Boston College is one of those guys that I think would make sense for Washington.
On the offensive line side of it, obviously the kid out of Ohio State who had the injury,
Josh Simmons.
Simmons, yeah. Like, if he falls, it's going to depend on what happens, somewhere in a medical examination, somewhere else in this convention center.
No doubt.
And I know that, like, Logan Paulson, my co-host on the Take Command podcast, like, he's like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Which, if you watch tape, pretty easy to get.
Top 10 pick if he's healthy. Yeah.
Right. So outside of him, is there anybody in that next group, like Campbell's going to be long gone from LSU, anybody in that next group that you think could be around at the end that you think has a legitimate tackle chance? Because, like, a lot of these guys are, let's see what they can do at tackle, but at worst they're a guard. Is there one of them that you would be like, I'd be willing to bet $5 on that guy actually sticking at tackle?
the most interesting one is Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, who stepped into Josh Simmons' spot,
right,
and was the unsung MVP of that national championship winning Buckeye team. He was a guard prospect coming into the year, but after watching his tape, it's like, okay, this guy is a tackle prospect. Like the way he's playing, we can't ignore that. He is a tackle prospect. So Donovan Jackson, I think, would be on the short list of guys that, like, he's a really good offensive lineman. I think he can stay at tackle. He's there in that mix. Josh Connerly from Oregon's another one of those players. He's a 3-year guy, 2-year starter, still growing, still kind of, you feel like he's ascending. So there's a little bit of, projection involved with him. But Connerly looks like an NFL starter at tackle. So those are the two guys that stand out the most that realistically could be there and give you potential starts at offensive tackle.
Last two things for you. One more position specific, and then just my favorite question asked draft guys this time of year. So wide receiver, they need to add juice. If I tell you that's the qualification I'm looking for, is like they need juice in that offense. I know the running back class is really good, and they'll probably at some point address that. But at the wide receiver position, who is a reasonably available guy in the end of the first or second round, mid-third, that you like, that fits the juice category?
Jalen Noel from Iowa State. I think he's probably late second, mid to late second, I would guess he's where he's going to go. You wish he maybe a little bit taller, bigger. He's about 5'10", 195 pounds, but he's got that juice where he's going to win vertically. But you give him a short pass and he's going to create with the ball in his hands. He's got really good ball skills. So even though he's a little bit smaller, the catch radius is bigger because he catches so well outside his frame. This is not a deep, usually every year, wide receiver is so deep. There's so many athletes.
You got a million dudes playing receiver now in 7-on-7. So.
Right. So corner and receiver, usually those two positions are just loaded. This year, it's just not quite like that.
Yeah.
Even in the first round, we'll see how many actually end up going in the first round. Would they consider if Emeka Buka falls to Washington in the first round, is that someone they'd consider, possibly? So it's just a really interesting wide receiver group. But if we're talking day two, a guy that I think will run really well here, Jalen Noel fits that description.
All right, my last final question for Dane Brugler, of course, the Athletic. The Beast coming, but not in a month. It's a little bit more than that. You still have time.
Yeah.
You can check out the feature, though, that you mentioned earlier, coming soon to the Athletic.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite question asked draft guys this time of year is basically like, who's your guy? Who's the guy that if you just sit down and you're like, I've watched all the guys I have to today, I want to watch someone that I want to watch. Who's the film that you're turning on?
Love Armand Membu, the Missouri offensive tackle. This guy is 20 years old. The body control, like there's so many different ways you can scout offensive linemen. Starts with the feet, and then you go up from there. But just the total body control from head to toe, the way he moves is so impressive. He's a tackle. Tape says he can play tackle. Some teams like him at guard, but he can stay at tackle. And in a class like this where, Will Campbell is probably the first offensive lineman, but not for sure. Membu, to me, is a guy that might get overlooked a little bit. He's going to go maybe 12th overall, something like that, and he's going to end up being the best offensive lineman from this class. It's
Dane Brugler from The Athletic. You can read all his stuff there. Dane, good to see you in person, and hopefully we'll talk to you later on in draft season.
Can't wait. Thanks, man.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.